Stephen Meade again, back with another Bullseye Guy shortcast. What are we going to talk about today? El Salvador. A lot of excitement, a lot of interest, a lot of confusion and misunderstanding, I think. Let's start with the big announcement. El Salvador announced they're going to accept Bitcoin as a currency. Fair enough. What does that mean? We have to define terms. Accept is a big one. Currency is another one. What is El Salvador really doing? Well, I'm going to share an article here. I don't usually share articles like this, but I like a couple of these. This particular one comes out and says, El Salvador is going to make Bitcoin legal tender. Great. What it's actually doing, and it's going to say it right down in here, when El Salvador says we're going to accept Bitcoin, the challenge is it's not really accepting Bitcoin as currency like a dollar or like the colon, like the El Salvadorian dollar. It's accepting it kind of like a credit card, but not exactly. When Bitcoin comes in, if you're paying $1,000 in your taxes or $10,000, El Salvador is not holding the Bitcoin. They're converting it to cash. And that's kind of what it says here. Burke said the government's guaranteeing convertibility to dollars at the time of the transaction. I'm going to jump to another quick article here where it talks about the problem is Wired, future of Bitcoin. Here we go. It talks about the problem with the International Monetary Fund. People are saying, oh, you can't take Bitcoin because it fluctuates. In April, it was a recipe for financial disaster. Citizens are allowed to pay taxes in a currency that might depreciate in hours, suddenly draining the government's coffers. Again, completely not true. What's happening is the government's saying, hey, we're going to accept Bitcoin, but we're going to convert Bitcoin to dollars, so we now have US dollars to operate on. I don't know if you caught the conversion there. Convert to dollars. If somebody in El Salvador pays the government in the El Salvadorian dollar, the colon, then they've paid in that El Salvador dollar. Somebody pays in Bolivian dollars back to the Bolivian government. The government is now holding the Bolivian dollar, which is subject to massive inflation. The governments would love to have US dollars. So in a weird way, allowing the citizens to buy Bitcoin, which we'll talk about in a moment, send it to the government who can now convert it to US dollars, is actually a transfer of wealth back to the government, allowing them to convert tax revenue into US dollars, not El Salvador dollars. Fascinating move, the way it'll play out economically. Second, underneath there's the merchants. It says very clearly in the articles, merchants by law must accept Bitcoin if it's presented as payment. So if you're a McDonald's, if you're a Starbucks, if you're a small business who somebody's paying you $100 for services, you have to accept it. It doesn't mean you have to keep it. Again, accept is different than keep. The businesses are going to sign up with merchant accounts. They'll sign up with a BitPay or a crypto.com. Some merchant provider will say, hey, we, the merchant provider, just like credit cards, will accept Bitcoin, convert it to cash, and then pay the merchant in cash. So the merchant, yes, accepts it, but that doesn't mean they own it and keep it and operate it as a currency. That's where I start drawing the distinction. Bitcoin's a form of payment. It may or may not act as a currency, and in my feeling, it can't actually operate as a ubiquitous currency because of the fluctuation of Bitcoin. Now, years from now, that may, level out. But again, if you're a state government, if you're a business owner, and you have $1,000 invoice and a guy pays you in $1,000, you can't wake up tomorrow and have that balance be $700. A business can't operate on mass fluctuations. And especially when you get into millions of dollars. That's why even minor movements in currency, the movement between a US dollar and the sterling, or the bolivar, or the Zimbabwe dollar, those minor fluctuations on millions of dollars matters. I mean, there's entire businesses built on currency fluctuation risk. But again, back to El Salvador. Very simply, if the citizenry owns Bitcoin and they want to buy something at McDonald's, McDonald's will by law have to accept it. McDonald's can then again convert to cash, and again, it becomes a transfer. The third level, I think, is most fascinating and most exciting. Bitcoin, to me, as I've long argued, is an asset class. It's an investment. Again, I tell the story. I wish I would have known this in 2012 when I first bought Bitcoin, thanks to Brock Pierce. I looked at it more like a stock. I bought 1,000 Bitcoin at $3, and I sold all of them at $5.80 and went, wow, I'm smart. I doubled my money almost. It turned out to be a bad move. Obviously, Bitcoin's gone up, but it's an asset that can, and I believe should, appreciate. Why is that important? Again, part of one of the articles in here, I would try and find it, but any of you guys can do the research. It's estimated 70% of the people in El Salvador don't have access to traditional financial instruments. They might not even have access to a bank or a bank account or a place to put their money or their dollars or ways to make payment. That becomes very difficult for a citizenry to move up, to elevate into a higher financial status, to enter into a more financial stability and security. If you're able to go on your phone and purchase Bitcoin, now again, still a little complicated, download a wallet, but whether you have cash at an ATM, I know El Salvador is going to put ATMs in, you'll be able to walk in, put your cash in, put in $500 or $1,000 or $50 and buy Bitcoin. That asset can go down, but just as likely it could go up. Why is that important? If you're in El Salvador and you're, again, I'm not trying to diminish anybody, but let's say you're a migrant worker, a farm worker, you could just be a graphics artist in El Salvador. $100 or $200 or $300 might matter to you as much as $10,000 to somebody else in a different financial category. Having $100 or $200 or $300 in your bank account, knowing that dollar has nowhere to go except down. Inflation's hitting, deflation. If you own $1 out of 100, you own a percentage. If you own $1 out of 1,000, your dollar's worth less. If you own $1 out of 1,000,000, so as these governments print more dollars, the dollars you own have less value. If you had that same $100 in Bitcoin, yes, it may fluctuate. Agreed. But again, it has the propensity and potential to go up. If your entire citizenry, if the citizens of El Salvador, 70% of them that aren't in the financial system, may not have banking, can own a stock, own an asset like Bitcoin that goes up. Imagine the changes, the opportunity, right? We're talking about democratizing financial systems, allowing a normal, not normal citizen, but a citizen who might not have had access to traditional financial instruments, who can't buy a $130 share of Apple because they can't buy one share. They don't have a bank account. They could buy Bitcoin as an asset, and that asset could go up in value and still allow them to use that asset for a form of payment is fascinating. I think more countries are going to follow in line because it doesn't put the country at risk financially. Again, the articles that are written to me are completely wrong. There's no risk in El Salvador accepting Bitcoin if they can sell it for US dollars. It's not a risk. It's a movement into a new financial structure. I think it's fascinating times. I don't think El Salvador will be the first. I believe others will follow, but there's a lot of reasons. Getting US dollars into their bank account isn't really talked about, but I think that's important. But elevating the citizenry into the world of financial services with a chance for appreciation is a brilliant opportunity. That's where blockchain and Bitcoin in this whole new world of digital assets is going to land. So hope that helps a little bit. Simple explanation. I think El Salvador is going to do a great job. There's a bunch of things they're working on. Hydrothermic mining. Like I think El Salvador's got their head around some really exciting things, but the simplicity of Bitcoin as a currency, I hope you understand a little bit better now. It's a form of payment, not necessarily a stable currency, but it can be used to buy things and it can appreciate. There you go. Stephen Meade, the Bullseye Guy. Thank you as always.